Hello everyone and welcome to the Hisui podcast. I'm Wolf Tyke and I'm here with Caterade 5 Tomics 9 Tomics, and today's a very special episode because we're here with Oripoke, or you may know them as Involuntary Twitch. They are a developer of Pokemon Uranium and, the most recently, Pokemon Flux.
Hi guys, great to be here.
Hello, hello.
Now, before we get into anything, I have to ask a very, very serious question.
Oh no.
Well, lay it on me.
Oripoke, are you pro Overworld Shadows or anti Overworld Shadows?
I think Overworld Shadows are an absolute necessity, and I literally won't play a fan game that doesn't have them.
Let's
Oh,
go!
there it
No, maybe
is. Wow.
Maybe we need a new guest.
I'm glad we have someone else on Team Overworld Shadows over here.
Wait, there are
Hey,
people
I'm
who
on
want
Team
Overworld Shadows?
I'm on
I
Team
think it's not a
Overworld
big
Shadows.
deal.
It's just not like, I think like if you have a Gen 3 game, you don't necessarily have to have Overworld Shadows.
Yeah, but it looks so bad if you don't
I
have
know.
them.
Thank you.
I agree,
Thank you.
but I don't think it's like, I think it's a necessity
I-
for everything other than Gen 3 and below.
I can give it a pass if it's like strictly Gen 3, but frankly, I just find it takes me out of the experience. And so many,
Yeah.
especially ROM hacks, just don't think that they can not use them, and it makes the game look super like amateur, which granted, all fan games are pretty much just amateur projects, so it might be an unrealistic standard, but to me, it is necessary. And it's so necessary that back when we were making Pokemon Uranium, I had to manually add in those Overworld Shadows to every single character set that I put together. It was tedious, it was unnecessary. Now we have a script that does it in Pokemon Flux automatically, but way back in the day, it was, I went above and beyond to make it work. But it was worth
I
it.
feel like such less of a crazy person now. Alright, y'all can now get off my back.
I remember like watching Atomic Reactor like tutorial videos, and he was like putting in the Overworld Shadows manually, and I was like, oh my god, am I about to do this?
It's because he's the expert. But now there is a script that you can do that'll do it automatically. I don't ask me how to implement this script. I have never touched a line of RGSS in my life, and I plan to keep it that way.
No, the only, generation that for me don't put Overworld Shadows in is Gen 2 and, below. But that's it.
Okay, but that's a
That's like, can you imagine putting Overworld Shadows in Gen 2 though? It might look weird then.
It wouldn't be authentic, but I think you could make it work. Not with partial transparency. That would sort of break that wouldn't be on style.
I guess
but
you
you could make
try
it
and make it like a solid color.
What you could do, and I don't think Pokemon Essentials supports this, or any kind of ROM hack supports this, but if you had some kind of a pixel shader, you could have it shade to the next color in the color ramp. Oh god, this is getting too technical. I'm not a programmer, but I think it's achievable if you are using a modern engine and rendering it. But that's not how Pokemon fan games work, at least with any of the existing fan game engines that are out there. So really impractical. No point in doing it for Gen 2. But it might look cool. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. If someone tries it out for a jam game or something, I'd be interested in seeing that, but...
Damn, I wonder if there's anybody in this call right now making a Gen 2 game for the Jam.
Who also happens to be obsessed with Overworld Shadows.
Oh, I was just gonna leave that part out.
I don't know.
Because I know there's more than
about.
one now, without the obsession of Overworld Shadows.
You're not the only person I know who's making a Gen 2 game for the EV Expo Game Jam. Really excited. I love Gen 2. Gen 2 is my
quite a few
favorite.
Gen
Pokemon
2.
Brass?
Am I talking about Pokemon
By
Brass?
Evan.
I'll be honest, I don't remember what the title is. All I know is that I think Tyrogue is one of the Pokemon that's in the game. That's all. But
I think Brass is the only other one that I'm familiar with. That's
Tom's game is in Gen 2?
I'm dead.
Drop out?
Okay, I'm out.
You're dead? No.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, he said
rip.
this last episode. I thought you saw the last episode.
I
Jay.
did. But do you think I
think
remember everything that was said in the last episode? I have selective
I think I said it...
theories.
We recorded the last episode twice. I think I said it in the first half. That did not get posted.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah,
guess
that would make
what?
sense.
I'm right, and I had never heard it.
Yeah.
By the way, I can confirm it is in fact Pokemon Brass.
Okay.
Ah.
No, like, one of the things that are fascinating me most about Brass is, like, it's changing the aspect ratio to, like, fit in better, especially with the name windows, because, no, it was funny, we added name windows in ours, I'm like, man, this is, like, at least one of the first Gen 2 fan games, like, do name windows in Gen 2, I couldn't think of any other ones, and it's like, man, this is so cool, and then I saw Brass post about it, too, at the same time, and I'm like, dang it.
Well, you know, I think that there's no copyright on ideas.
Well,
In
yeah.
fact, there's no
Well, especially on name windows, I don't
Yeah.
think that's,
Yeah.
too original.
Not a revolutionary market. But
What?
I'm looking
Andy, that
forward
just
to it.
reminded me. Did you play? Do you know of Pokemon Galme? It's probably a bit before your time, but it was a Gen
Galme.
2 fan
I
game.
know about Galme.
that
I've played
went-
Galme.
Yeah. It's
my,
widescreen.
my buddy Evan and I think Scott also
Yeah.
made that game. And I played it. That was a weird one.
It has a lot of hidden lost jokes in it as well because Scott was obsessed with loss. But
Is that what the references are for? It went completely over my head.
Oh, wait, what is it called? Galme?
Galme,
Yeah, Galme.
How do you spell that?
Galmi. Because if Relic Castle is down, you'll probably have to tag EV Expo on the end of that,
Oh,
or even just search on EV Expo.
oh
itself.
yeah.
I would
'cause
just
all
go
I
through the
see
Game Jam
is-
page.
Yeah, because all I see are like these probably not safe websites.
I'd say it's very experimental and definitely the kind of game you can complete in one sitting. I don't remember that much about it other than the widescreen aspect ratio.
Yeah.
You really can
The
just change
widescreen.
the screen size in Pokemon
Oh.
Essentials to be whatever you want it to be, except for then you'll have to redo all the UI probably. So that's what prevents people
Yeah.
from doing it. But we did it for Pokemon Flux.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I noticed when I was making my layout for my Flux playthrough, I was like, it's different, and I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am wrong, but it's not the same as like a default fan game. It's not the same as like a Gen 3 ROM hack, is it?
It is an
There's a-
entirely custom aspect ratio, and all of our UI is entirely custom and made by JV.
That is crazy. I think the
Huh.
aspect ratio is really clean. Actually, I like that. Kind of a little bit more vertical, not as much as like a normal fan game, but it feels more like widescreen than like a DS type screen. But it like still has a lot of vertical, I guess, resolution. I don't know.
I think it's a
I'm not
comfy
one to
screen
talk on
size. You're right. You're touching on something. I think it strikes just a good amount of balance between like giving the game enough room to breathe. You don't feel like claustrophobic, like there's only so many tiles on the screen and only so many Pokemon. Like so we have Pokemon that spawn in the overworld in Pokemon Flux. And
Right.
you want to have a larger screen so that you can see them spawning in, but you don't want the screen to be too big. It kind of makes your character disappear. It makes the maps feel overwhelming. I feel like the ratio that we chose is just the right amount. And when I say we, I really mean JV. JV's the person who does all of the wizardry. I am the sprite artist. I am the scenario. I'm the writer. I'm the Pokemon designer. And I do like I'm the ideas guy.
Ideas
but-
guy, oh
We
my
all-
god.
we all
The
need a
ideas
good
person
idea
is
guy.
so important because like I feel like I am not an ideas person. When I like do solo dev stuff, I'm just like, what am I doing?
Yeah, so JV is really the one who makes the magic happen. I'm like, so what if we had this idea? And JV's like, that's completely unrealistic. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But oftentimes he'll just be like, yes, we can do that. It'll be easy. And then he does it, and it looks even better than I envisioned it in my mind. He's truly a wizard. He's also like an Essentials dev himself. Like he's contributed to the latest, like the branch version. He's I can't even speak to all of the the things that he's coded and contributed, but he is straight up a prodigy, and anything that he envisions in his mind is probably possible. I mean, he coded our online systems, he did all of our custom user interfaces, all of our new moves and abilities, the Flux move system, every new mechanic is possible because of his genius, and I wouldn't be able to achieve one tiny fraction of what we've done if it wasn't for our collaboration. So shout outs to the person who's not in this call, JV, my other half.
Speaking of which, how did you kind of meet JV and kind of gain the collaboration that you guys now have?
Oh, that's a fun story. So this was, way longer ago than I care to enumerate, but I was in high school. I was probably like a freshman in high school, so younger than you, Tycho. And I was on the Poke community, which was still around back then. It's still going to this day, which astounds me. And Pokemon Uranium wasn't my first fan game. I'd actually been working on a different fan game before then, but I wasn't really satisfied with its direction. I'm like, the guy who's leading this project is full of hot air. He's never gonna code a single thing that's playable. He is the ideas guy, right? But he's never gonna put, I want to work with someone who can actually build a functional game. And there I see in the developing projects forum, which I don't know if that's still around, but people would post their crazy ideas of I'm gonna make Pokemon everything that has all 356 Pokemon and all 3 regions that are in the Pokemon world all together in one, because it was Gen 3 at the time. Anyway, and so I saw this thread of this game called Pokemon Uranium by this no-name JV12345, which was actually his handle. But it had some real screenshots, and it looked kind of like there was a real game there. I could tell there was actual creativity and development skill, sort of, from someone who was about my age. And so I reached out, I'm like, hey, do you need a spriter? Because I could do pixel art and Fakemon design. And he's like, yes, very much so. And so we teamed up, and I love the name Pokemon Uranium. However, at the time it had absolutely nothing to do with the storyline of the game that he was envisioning. So I'm like, what if we worked in some of the uranium aspect and made a nuclear type? And he's like, yeah, we can make that happen. And so and it just turned out that our skills were perfectly complementary. He was really good at making maps. He could make custom music. He could code. He could implement events, but his first language wasn't English. So writing dialogues or coming up with story ideas or making Fakemon, he wasn't like a visual, a pixel artist. Now he's actually a pretty great pixel artist, but that's not what but at any rate, he's our skills were perfectly complementary. I made up for all the things that he lacked, and he made up for all the things that I lacked, and so the two of us kind of made a dream team when it came to fan games. And then we developed Pokemon Uranium for 9 years. Before releasing it in 2016, which is 8 years ago? It's almost been as long since Pokemon Uranium came out as it took us to make it, which is crazy to think
that
about.
Is actually
it's nearly as old as Wolf Taco now.
I mean, if you take from the start of Pokemon Uranium's development to today, yeah, Wolf Taiko is probably about as old as Pokemon Uranium if you start from Beta 1.
That's insane.
That is crazy.
No, and what's so crazy is growing up Pokemon Uranium, I would say it was just kind of known across when I was growing up, everyone knew about Pokemon Uranium, at least its existence. And that's why I kind of appreciate Uranium a little bit, because it makes it so much easier to explain what I do as a hobby. Because it's oh, I make Pokemon fan games. They're what the hell does that mean? I'm Pokemon Uranium? Yeah, like that.
That's actually crazy because I feel like nobody that I went to school with or any of my friends knew what fan games were before I got into it and explained it to them. So
I think the main reason why Uranium was as known, at least growing up, is because I grew up, big meme culture with the internet, and because there was that huge meme and almost thing of Uranium got taken down by Nintendo.
I don't know if that's a meme. I mean, that happened.
I was gonna say, that's not really
Yeah.
a meme. That happened, Andy. I'm sorry to break it to you.
Oh, I know it
Yeah.
happened, but they spun that and made memes off of that.
Sure. I mean, I guess you could call it that. It's hard to call it a meme when it actually happens to you personally, though. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully, you don't need to know.
Hopefully you don't need to know.
Hopefully,
And
yeah.
it really doesn't happen to the vast majority of people.
No.
I guess I'm just built different. What can I say?
Exactly.
Yep, your designs just attracted the Nintendo grunts.
I don't know if it was the designs. I think it was more the fact that we released it like a month after Pokemon Go came out. And, you know, everybody was already talking about Pokemon. Like, it was the Pokemon summer. You guys remember... Wait, no, Wolf might not remember, but
No,
you guys
I
remember
remember.
the summer of 2016.
That summer was
I
so
remember.
fun.
It was really
That
fun.
summer
And I was like,
so fun.
okay,
No,
so...
what was crazy about Pokemon Go for me, originally, I was like, no, you know what, this will be the one Pokemon thing I don't get, you know, I'm not gonna get into it, and then because it was so popular, my mom heard about it, and then was like, hey, Andrew, do you want Pokemon Go? And I went, sure, why not?
Let me paint a picture for you. I had just graduated college that year, and I was working... Not really a real job, kind of a fake job that you do when you're out of college and have no real experience. So my real job was developing and releasing Pokemon Uranium, which we did in August, and that became my full-time job for about a month until we shut down our portion of development. It was trial by fire. I had no media experience. I had no idea what to do with the game that was now impossibly viral beyond my wildest comprehension. I was fresh out of college. And everyone was already talking about Pokemon, you know? But like at the time, like, I don't even know how I can describe how popular it was. The game theorist, you know Matt Pat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He made a video, didn't he?
Well, before he made a video, he did a live stream of himself playing Pokemon Uranium. That live stream, 30,000 people were watching it, and I was one of them.
That is
30,000.
That is most definitely beyond comprehension. I feel like
I know.
that is like you're thinking of like towns, like town size amount of people watching a single live stream. That's how I try and comprehend it. Yeah,
Full
it's
of people
crazy.
watching Matt Pat play my game that I made. Oh, it was insane. So yeah, that kind of breaks your brain. I'm not really interested in having that happen ever again. It was exhausting.
I can't even imagine. Okay,
Yeah.
to defend my stance about it becoming a meme, in a way, I went to knowyourmeme.com.
Oh god.
Oh boy.
Yes, because this is where we go when we want to learn more.
This
about
is literature. This is what real professors cite in their thesis.
Okay, so I went to the Pokemon category, and there's this little subcategory for fan games, and all it has is Pokemon Uranium.
There is a whole Pokemon category and a whole fan game subcategory.
Of course,
Yep.
there's a Pokemon category on Know Your Meme. There's so many Pokemon memes.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I guess
Then there's fan games underneath that, and the only thing under fan games is Pokemon Uranium, where it says Pokemon Uranium is a fan-made game made by developer JV. I'm not gonna try to pronounce his name, and designer Involuntary Twitch, released
me.
on August 6th, 2016.
That is true. So we're on Know Your Meme. We're also on Wikipedia. There's a Wikipedia page for Pokemon Uranium.
wow.
Yeah, but Wikipedia
Oh.
doesn't talk about memes, so I'm trying to, you know.
Ori, I just opened the Know Your Meme page and they put you right above I heard you like Mudkips, which is god.
That's hilarious. I mean, that's definitely a meme that's older than Tycho.
Yeah, I don't know what that
Yeah.
is.
You're better not known. I mean,
It's alright.
Okay.
I just remember,
But no,
you
it
know, I
says
was
I
on
think-
DeviantArt, and for like an April Fool's prank, they changed everybody's
Hmm.
icon to a Mudkip. Back in the ye olden days of the Wild West of the internet, when DeviantArt was good and not taken over by AI garbage. It was whimsical. Hello?
Hello?
I think you just dropped out for a moment. But that's
Oh, I dropped
okay.
out. Oh, I was just
thought it was
waxing
me for a
nostalgic. I was waxing nostalgic over old memes, doesn't matter.
But
The
yeah,
viewers
I
will
remember.
still hear it.
Yeah, because we're recording, so it should be okay. In high school, I'd like get to school like 10 minutes, 15 minutes early, and there were always a group of kids in my grade who would like sit in the library and play games. Sometimes it'd be like Halo 4 on their PC. Halo 4? Maybe not 4, maybe something else. But then there's a phase where they went through like a Pokemon fan game phase, and they started playing like Insurgents and sure enough, Uranium. And it was just so crazy to see real people I knew get in or play in Pokemon fan games. It's just that's the kind of level that Uranium reached.
Yeah, I've met some
And
people
fan
who've
games
played.
has also like gotten to the point of a little bit more social acceptance, to the point that like I once told someone and they were just, "Oh, that's really cool." But like I developed that stuff, so
That's
Like,
crazy because
eventually.
if one of my aunts and uncles walked up to me and I told them I work on Pokemon fan games, they'd tell me to get a life. So.
yeah. Oh, my uncle also knows about it, and he was like really impressed. Well, he's also in the game development like industry,
Okay.
so
That makes
that
a little
might
bit
be
more
part of
sense
it.
then.
Yeah.
You know, if I could be real, I don't think that Pokemon develop and this isn't a knock on Pokemon fan game developers. I don't really think about it as the same as developing.
No,
commercial
I
games.
would
No.
not.
Oh, definitely.
No.
It's for me, it's purely a hobby. I don't think I would want to be a game developer as my career. It doesn't interest me. The things about game dev that interest me are all in fan games. You know, the creativity, the freedom of expression, the ability to play with an existing IP. It's like writing fan fiction, which is something I also do. You know, it's the sort of like, you know, the push and pull, the dialogue with an existing like IP that people are familiar with, and then you're putting your own take on it, or you're exploring what you can do within this existing framework with these known like characters or Pokemon or stuff like that. You know, I think it's really a form of play. It's play. That's what it is for me.
I completely agree, and I won't go on about this too much because maybe we could get into a bit saucy. But there was a YouTuber recently who's like decently big, and he made like such an annoying statement over the Relic Castle takedown that just pissed me off. Saying that
Well,
like,
YouTubers
fan
always-
game is. They're like, oh, you should just take this as a sign to work on original IPs instead now.
Oh, I think I
You should
know who
just
you're
leave
talking
fan
about.
games behind, make your own game. I'm like, shut up.
It's
Yeah,
not
there was
like-
also someone else when that happened that like put out like the fan game developers and like grouped them together with like hackers, and that they were like disrespectful to the original like franchise.
As in like ROM hackers or like people?
No,
who-
everything. ROM hackers and fan game developers.
ROM hackers are not hackers.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I think a lot of like people, I don't want to really go down a rabbit hole on this subject, but I feel like there's a lot of people who are like kind of like tangentially related to the fan game community that are just, from their lack of knowledge on what goes into development and what kind of surrounds that area, because of their lack of knowledge on that, they have bad takes. But I'm not excusing everybody. There are also people who do understand what goes into fan game development and have absolutely awful takes as well. But I feel like a lot of the people, especially when something such as big as the Relic Castle takedown, and everybody starts covering it, then that we get to that area where I feel like then people without the prerequisite knowledge to comment on the events do start commenting on those events.
Mhm.
I mean, they're just
Yeah.
they're in the economy of clicks, right? They don't
Yeah.
care about authenticity or, you know, they don't. It doesn't matter to them if they're accurately representing the stakes or, in fact, the community here. or what's they don't care if they're talking about real people's projects or real people and their passion. It's more like, oh well, they should have known better. They shouldn't have dumped all their time into making something that they don't own. It completely missing the point, which is that fan games are passion projects. We're not making them in as a stepping stone to make quote unquote real games. We're making them because making games is fun, and the barrier to entry is a lot lower when you're working with an established IP and there's an existing community there. And we really love Pokemon. If I didn't have Pokemon, I wouldn't be making my games. That's just there is no game without the fan aspect.
Yeah, and for me, it's like the reason why I got into making fan games. I mean, obviously, I love Pokemon. That love has been tested a little bit in the last couple of years, but we don't talk about that.
I'll talk about it. I don't really play Pokemon anymore. I've played some fan games that I've really enjoyed, but as for the main series Pokemon games, I just feel like I've kind of outgrown them. The kinds of games that I enjoy nowadays are very different from Pokemon. Well, some of them have some similarities. They're like, I still like a good turn-based RPG. I still like a monster collecting game. You might have seen right before this stream I was playing Pal World, but there's the actual gameplay loop of Pokemon games. It doesn't really make my neurons fire in the way that it used to as a kid, and I think that's fine. I mean, I'm very much not a kid anymore, so it makes sense that the kinds of things that we enjoy when we're younger don't excite us as much. But for some reason, fan game development still maintains that level of interest and excitement for me, even though I've sort of fallen out of fashion with the series itself. Broadly speaking, I don't think I've played a main series Pokemon game in well over a year. I'll probably play the new, whatever the next generation is. I'm still a shill. Well, not exactly a shill, but,
You sold your life to them.
I still stay on top of it, but, it's... I didn't play the Scarlet Violet DLC, for instance. I also didn't play the Sword and Shield DLC, so I'm staying consistent with that. But, I don't know. It just... I don't think it's a contradiction that I like making fan games, but don't actually play Pokemon that much.
Yeah.
Not at all.
There's other people on our team who are up to date, who know the new moves and the new mechanics that they've implemented, with a great level of detail, and they can give that feedback. They're like, "Ooh, you should put Scorching Sands on this Pokemon." I'm like, "What the hell is Scorching Sands? What does that do?" It's like it's a ground type move that burns. I'm like, "Cool, yeah, put it on the desert guy. Sounds good." So, I rely on networks of people who actually are up to date with this stuff to make sure that my ideas are consistent, with, and I'm not, poo-pooing my nose at all the new stuff. There were some stuff in Scarlet and Violet that I really loved. Tinkaton, great Pokemon. There might have been other things in that game that I liked.
Do you like the Paradox Pokemon, or?
I like the Paradox Pokemon. I'm not insane about them. I haven't designed. I've designed maybe one or two fan Paradoxes, but I see some really great fan designs for Paradoxes, and I think my favorite Paradox Pokemon is the Raikou one. That's a Brachiosaur. I love that one.
Oh yes, with a long neck.
Yeah, I forget what it's called. It's like Crashing Bolt or something.
Raging Bolt?
Raging Bolt?
Raging Bolt, yes, that one. I can't remember its name. They all have weird names, but I like
names.
That is my main complaint about Paradox Pokemon. Why does every future Paradox Pokemon start with iron?
I know, they're not even made of iron.
There's no reason for this. I don't care. I can't remember what any of them are.
I mean, I know Iron Bundle.
Iron Hands. Iron Hydreigon.
Iron Hydreigon?
Iron Jugulis.
That's what it's called.
Iron Jugulis.
What? How am I supposed to remember that?
Hey, I did it because it's just so stupid. Iron Archer. Oh no, that was one I made.
Iron Gender. The Galate one.
Oh, Iron Valiant.
Is that what it's called?
Yep.
They're fun. I also really like Koraidon and Miraidon. I think they're cool designs.
Yeah.
They get a lot of personality in the game, which is nice. I think Pokemon's getting better at giving legendaries personality.
I love my weird dog that eats sandwiches.
Yeah. And steals them too.
He's cute. I liked that. The legendaries aren't like, they're not like some far off distant thing, that it's your partner from a pretty early stage in the game. That was nice. And that you're like growing alongside it. Something that I always like to think about with Pokemon is that, to the extent that it has any sort of like meta narrative in Pokemon games, it's a coming of age story, right? You start out, you're level 5, you don't have any badges, you're a child, you're just taking your first steps into a vast and somewhat, a world full of mysteries and wonder. And then over time, your player character doesn't really mature at all because they're a silent protagonist, but your Pokemon do. And so the Pokemon are sort of a proxy for the players getting older and becoming wiser and more like capable. Your Pokemon evolve, and you evolve too, but not in an outward way, because you still look like a kid throughout their whole adventure. But the point is that Pokemon's a coming of age story, and I think that having the main legendary also kind of metaphorically evolve alongside the player like they did in Scarlet and Violet was good. The one thing that I don't understand why they didn't put in the game, though, level scaling. What the fuck? Why isn't that in the game?
Say it again for the people in the back.
It's an open world game. You can challenge the gyms in any order. Why don't they scale to your level?
Exactly.
Or at least, like,
should I plug something?
What, is it a fan game in which they add level scaling? Is it a ROM hack of Pokemon
world.
Scarlet Violet?
I wonder what game he's gonna bring up.
Yeah, it's an open world 8-gym game that has level scaling.
I mean, that does describe a number of games. Is it Pokemon Wilds?
Oh, no.
You said it was wild. So.
Hey, Andy, who developed that game that you're talking about?
Yeah, so I was one of the developers for that game, Pokemon Abstract.
Oh, I think that's been on my radar. Is there Fakemon?
Yeah. Yep. I think I mentioned it in your Twitch chat once.
I vaguely remember this. Yeah, I think that was on my radar. I don't have very much free time at all, let alone time to play fan games, unfortunately. But that's one of them. And if I were, if I were to somehow manufacture 48 hours per day, I would probably get around to playing all the games that I want to play. Or I'd just sleep more. I would just get a full 12 hours of sleep every day. Life. Oh, that'd be so nice. But I don't, so...
No, Abstract is basically if Scarlet and Violet was good.
I like to say that Pokemon Flux is if Sword and Shield had a coherent story.
Oh no, we're not getting into this.
But we haven't actually finished telling the story yet. I say we. I haven't finished telling the story yet, so I'm not sure I'm qualified to point fingers.
I'm very interested to hear that you associate the story of Flux to Sword and Shield. That makes me actually super interested now to see where
I can see it.
Where the story's going.
Yeah. At the point where we were developing Flux, Sword and Shield were the latest games that were out. Like, we were making it pre-Scarlet Violet. Although, of course, now, as of the next episode, there will be Gen 9 Pokemon available in the game. So it's up to date with the current generation as of this recording, but I would say that Pokemon Sword and Shield were the bigger influence in terms of its like narrative progression and stuff. And I don't want to say too much because it will veer into spoilery territory, but they were a big influence.
But speaking of which, with like the beginning of Flux, what kind of was the inspiration for starting into Flux? Was it just, let's make another Pokemon fan game, or was there like one of you guys had like one idea in like making a fan game and then you chose to like you got really inspired by that idea and then made Flux?
That's basically what happened. So JV reached out to me and he was like, hey, I've been playing around, I've been working with like some of the old uranium assets that we have and I put together like a proof of concept with a game that has overworld spawning Pokemon, and you want to make like a mini project. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to work with you again, because me and JV are sort of a dream team, and I'd missed working together with him, and I'd missed working on a fan game. I'd actually done, so I should say, I've done more fan games besides Pokemon Uranium and Pokemon Flux, but they were Poke Engine games. We can talk about that in a little bit. First, I want to answer your question. JV reached out and was like, do you want to work on this mini project? We were both in quarantine, right? This was 2020. It was the summer of 2020. And I'm like, yeah, screw it. I have nothing better going on, and this sounds like fun, and I'd love to work with JV again. And so we kind of, together, it started in DMs, just kind of hashing out, like, you know, what we wanted to see and what we didn't want to see, what kind of, like, core concept we wanted to explore. I think we started with the mechanic, with, like, the Flux mechanic. We wanted to make sure that it was, like, one of the flaws, I think, in Uranium, which is obvious to anyone who plays it, is that, like, the core gimmick of the game, the nuclear type, doesn't even get introduced until, like, 8 hours in. It's such a delayed, like, I mean, like, when it's there, it's kind of like, it's whatever, it's nothing. So one of the first things that we had set out was that our custom gimmick needs to be front and center. And so we thought of 2 custom gimmicks, which kind of became the foundation of Pokemon Flux, both its story and, like, its gameplay, and that is the Flux moves, which are kind of like Z moves, but you build them yourself with the alpha part and a beta part, and the alpha part is like a non-damaging like status or other effect, like a trapping move or setting weather, and then the beta part is a damaging move of a certain type. And so you combine the 2 halves of a move together, and you create a custom 5th move for your Pokemon that you can use. And it draws on a separate type of power points called Flux points, or FP, that are shared within your whole party. So you can actually use multiple Flux moves in a battle, as long as you have enough FP for it. Although each Pokemon can only use its own individual Flux move once. So it opens up a ton of like potential for experimentation, and it's also got a doubles focus, because Flux moves hit both opponents, and most of the major battles in Pokemon Flux are doubles battles. So we really wanted to have, from the very get-go, a more strategic game that was more like VGC focused. And then in addition to that, I'm not sure where this came up, but the idea of the altar Pokemon, which are basically like bosses that you fight, both in the overworld as kind of like pseudo raids, akin to raids from Sword and Shield, but rather than having like the multiple health bars, they just have a lot more health and they can use Flux moves. And there's other special mechanics too, but basically those kind of, instead of having an evil team, which I guess is similar to in Pokemon Uranium, where there wasn't really an evil team. There was a villain who, again, got introduced super duper late in the story, so I wouldn't blame you guys if you played Pokemon Uranium and didn't encounter the villain at all, because you dropped off at, like, the midway point. It's like, how is this taking too long? But in this, like, the antagonist in Pokemon Flux is the Pokemon, the altar Pokemon that are, like, corrupted by an unknown force and indiscriminately attack people and other Pokemon. And so it's, like, you know, an excuse to put the player into conflict with opposing forces from an early stage in the game. And then, like, in the very first battle, literally the tutorial battle, Flux moves, altar Pokemon. There we go. There's the core gimmicks in the game. And you get access to both of them very, very early on from the gameplay. So, like, the game tells you what it's about, and it's right there. And it's there in the title. It's called Pokemon Flux. So, it came together, and it ended up being very obvious to us very quickly that this is not going to be a small project, that this is going to be a huge project, which eventually, you know, a couple months later, JV admitted, like, yeah, I knew that working with you, Ori, meant that this game was not going to be just like a mini project. I just wanted to make another full game with you. I'm like, yeah, me too.
How do you come up with, like, the names for the terms of, like, altar Pokemon and Flux moves?
So I think we were just brainstorming different words that sounded cool, and Pokemon Flux I think it was my suggestion. It just stuck. It was a cool sounding word. It's one syllable. It's got good SEO, I guess. You know what it was. You know what it was. This is gonna sound so dorky. So I like to watch Let's Plays a lot, and I was watching this Minecraft Let's Play, one of those questing skyblock type Minecraft mods, and in that game you were like it was like a resource management mod, and the energy resource was called Redstone Flux, or RF. And I thought that Flux was a cool name for like an energy source, and that's what Flux is. It's energy. And I would say that the predominant theme in both Pokemon Uranium and Pokemon Flux is energy, which makes sense if you know me. I have a fascination with energy on all levels, in my personal life and in my professional one. So the fact that Pokemon Flux plot revolves around energy, let you go into a power plant, and also that Pokemon Uranium relates to nuclear energy. It's not a coincidence. It's something that I have a personal interest in.
I find it very interesting that Flux is inspired not from real life Flux, but from Redstone Flux in Minecraft.
Yeah. I mean, that's what planted the seed of the idea. I then like did some research, and I was like on Wikipedia, and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, this is a word that has there's a lot of different meanings. I mean, flux just means like change, or sometimes like rapid vacillating change, which could refer to an electric current, for instance, but it could refer to really anything. And in the case, I mean, flux energy in the context of Pokemon Flux is sort of this nebulous force, substance that comes in, it comes in solid and liquid and gas forms, and it has all these different properties and characteristics, but it's an energy source. But it's also kind of mysterious, like no one really knows what it is exactly or why it's abundant in Altera and nowhere else, and so it's sort of a driving, this element, this material is kind of a driving part of the force, part of the storyline. And the other thing that inspired it, and this is also veering into spoiler territory, but the other thing that I think really inspired the whole plot and the role of Flux in general is my favorite video game of all time, which is Monster Hunter World.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the bioenergy in Monster Hunter World, that was a direct inspiration behind Flux.
I'm looking forward to the Xeno'jiiva final boss fight of Flux.
Oh, that's such a cool final boss. I still need to replay the DLC and fight Safi Jiva. That's like that's a bucket list thing for me. I played it, I beat it, but then it was before they'd released the Safi Jiva raid, and so I still need to complete that with my friend who's also playing through the game and the DLC. So hopefully in the near term I'll be able to put that feather in my cap, because it's a cool ass boss. But I love Xeno'jiiva.
Have you played Rise and Sunbreak, or you
have.
just stick to?
Yeah, I love Monster Hunter. But I haven't played the older Monster Hunter, so I guess by a Monster Hunter purist terms, I'm a fake fan. But yes, I've played World and Iceborne and Rise and Sunbreak, and I also played Monster Hunter Stories. Great game. Really fun game, especially if you like monster catcher and monster taming games. It's excellent. It's like Pokemon, but better.
It's got a lot of character, Monster Hunter Stories. It's
really
nice.
Charming, the monsties are fun. You can, it's monster. You put Monster Hunter in your Pokemon. You put your Pokemon on your Monster Hunter. It's perfect. It's the game for me. It's great.
Yeah.
And apparently Monster Hunter Stories 1 Remastered is now on Steam, and I need it. I need it. That's all I have to say about that. I need it. I need to play it.
Very fun games. What other games, apart from Monster Hunter and apart from the obvious Pokemon, have you or do you enjoy?
So I tend to like RPGs a lot. And this past year has been a very long odyssey into Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh, wow.
Which has eaten up a lot of my time. But it's very
Crazy
enjoyable,
Ethy's
especially
not
with
here.
friends.
I know
Ethy
Ethy's
plays.
one of us who plays.
Oh.
He's
Well, he
deep
would
in
understand.
Dawn Trail.
I'm not even to Dawn Trail. I'm in Shadowbringers, which is great, which is excellent. Some of the best storytelling I've ever experienced in any video game ever is Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. I am taking notes furiously. I'm not actually taking notes, but I'm fully immersed in this experience. It's excellent. I did have to play 300 hours of 3 other X packs before making it to Shadowbringers, though. Final Fantasy XIV is a game for insane people, but all of my friends are insane, and now so am I. Aside from that, and you can feel free to judge me if you like, but I really like, I've really spent a lot of time these past years playing just a lot of Hoyoverse games, mostly Genshin Impact, but lately I've been really into Honkai Star Rail. My icon on Discord is a Honkai Star Rail character. I don't know if you clocked that. But
I'm not a hater. You passed the vibe check, don't worry.
Yeah, no, I just really like them. They're fun. I like anime. They're very high quality games and enjoyable. And I made a bunch of friends who also enjoy them. And so I have a whole group of friends who are outside of the Pokemon fan game sphere, and we mostly talk about Hoyoverse games. I do play other games. This past week I've just been playing Pal World again, non-stop.
Right.
My friend got a shared server. For so there's a group of us that log in and play, and it's I feel like the common through line between all these games that I've poured hours and hours and days of my life into: Final Fantasy, Genshin Impact, Pal World, Honkai, well, not Honkai, but all those 3 games have really accessible co-op, and you can play them with your friends, and that to me is kind of the deciding factor. I like single player games too, but having easy drop-in multiplayer, and it just being a fun game to exist in the world and move around. I know that sounds like a really low bar, but to me that's critical. And it was actually something that I really endeavored to have in Pokemon Flux. From the movement, being able to move your character diagonally makes the game feel more fluid and open, and it makes it hard to go back to a fan game with 4 directional movement, even though that's most fan games. And also just the having your Pokemon following you and having the Pokemon out in the world, it makes it feel alive. It makes it the kind of world that you want to move through and spend time in, not even playing the game or progressing the story, but just vibing. That to me, it sounds trivial and kind of dumb, but to me that's important for the staying power of any game.
Didn't you also at one point sprite the pals in the Pokemon sprite style?
I'm currently working on it. I'm trying to sprite all of them. I'm about 30 into the pal deck, and I hope to, my short-term goal is 50 so that I can get a Pokéngine dex. Are any of you on the call familiar with Pokéngine?
I'm
yes.
familiar with it, but I've never played a Pokéngine game, but I know vaguely how it works.
Okay, let me pitch Pokéngine as strongly as I can here. Pokéngine is an experiment. There's nothing else on the internet that's like it. It is a Pokemon fan game MMORPG that's played on your browser or on your smartphone. I'd recommend browser just because smartphone has, fewer buttons. But it's basically an interconnected fan game universe. Every game that's built in Pokéngine that's playable is part of this shared world. You start in the hub, and then you can travel to different regions, and each region is basically an individual fan game that's made by someone or by a group of people. One of the latest regions that just came out is Harshholm, which is a complete Fakemon-only region that's incredibly high quality. It's made by my friend King Tapir, and it's excellent. Very, very fun. To explore and discover all these new Pokemon and this new world, and it's all pixel art. It's very high quality. There's developing games in Pokéngine requires a pretty high bar to pass. You need to demonstrate you have several maps ready, you have a pitch for your region, you need to have a plan. You can't just go and noodle around with the dev tools by default, which I think is kind of a drawback, but it also guarantees the people who do develop games in it are committed. And I have actually developed several games in Pokéngine. If you liked Pokemon Uranium and if you like Pokemon Flux, go on Pokéngine and check out the Barovia region, and also the Easter Island region. But I would recommend Barovia just because I put a lot of that's a fun one. It's a mini region that's Halloween themed. You're exploring a spooky mansion. It's very puzzle focused. There's a lot of Fakemon. I designed several of them, including the starter and legendary. And I also just sort of designed the whole scenario of the game. I didn't do all of it. It was a collab with multiple people, including Kyle Dove and Mega Crustle and a bunch of other folks that are super duper talented, and it wouldn't have happened without them. But yeah, Poke Engine is really hard to describe because there's nothing else like it. But it's also very fun, and it's a community that I'm active in. I'm a moderator on the Discord channel and just staff in general on it, and I've been involved in that project for like over a decade. It's a very long-running thing, but I think recently it's kind of hit its stride, and it's gaining some momentum. I think it had a couple of YouTube videos that covered it, and so there was an influx of new users, but it stayed popular, I think, and it stayed kind of active and busy, and it's really, really fun. If you like fan games, if you like Fakemon especially, please check it out. It's really worth your time. There's nothing else quite like it, and there's some super creative and wonderful experiences on there, and it's constantly being updated too.
Hero Voltsy made a little series on one of the regions from Poke Engine recently. And
he did. He was playing through Harshal. That was fun.
Mm.
Yeah, I know. I think Ronco also wrote about, I believe, actually the Lanava region, in an EV Expo article as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so Harshal was
so-
like the kind of the taster. Lanava's kind of the Harshal's like an island off the Lanava region. The Lanava is like the secondary project that King Tapir is working on after Harshal. But it's part of the Lanava region, so you're not wrong.
Yeah, I know. She's been great. She's been talking about Poke Engine for a while, so like.
Yeah, check it out.
I need to get on one of those. Get on
it. So the way that you access it, you have to create an account on the website, which is pokeengine.org. And then you go on the Discord server and you link it to your Discord account, and then you can log into the MMO. And it spawns you in the hub, walks you through a short tutorial, and then you can pick any of the regions that are currently like available to play. There's some canon regions. There's like Retro Kanto. There's Neo Sinnoh. There's a couple others that are still in development. There's Retro Hoenn, which is like Gen 3. Or there's a lot of fan-made regions. The Rika region is really good. Fuzzy developed that. It's got a mix of Fakemon and canon Pokemon. Mostly Fakemon. Really good quality Fakemon. And then the Harshal region that I mentioned before. And there's Barovia that I made. And Easter Island. And there's more regions than that. There's a lot of regions. A lot of mostly original, really cool, unique experiences. That's... and it's an MMO, so you can play it with your friends. The co-op is sort of limited. I mean, you can trade and battle with other players, but there's no like parties or guilds or anything like that. It's still in beta, but it's very fun. And there's nothing else like it on the internet. So, if you're interested in fan games, and you like, check it out. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, I think I have an account on Poke Engine, but I haven't like gotten into it yet.
Give it a try. What have you got to lose? You can also play it on your phone. You need an internet connection, so it's not like it's something that you can download and play like a ROM hack. But it's deep and it's vast and it's constantly evolving. So there's come in. The water's fine.
I may have to wait until after the jam in case I get like an unhealthy addiction to it.
That is reasonable.
It really be like that. Whenever you're developing jam projects, it's just like, oh yes, I have a week left, and somehow I'm like unhealthily addicted to the most random thing ever.
Nothing like having a deadline to motivate you to do the exact opposite of whatever it is that you have to do for the deadline.
Oh, it's so funny. I think one of like the developers that are like working with me were like, I think this was last week, they were saying like, oh yeah, we can finish like most of the content by the end of the week, and I'm like, haha, no we can't. What are you going on about?
Optimism.
We did not.
Well, yeah, yes, of course. I made a jam game one time.
I was actually going to ask you about that.
Yeah, Cade wanted to talk about this.
For the first ever Relic Castle game jam. I think maybe the second. Anyway, one of the early ones.
I believe it was actually the first.
It was the
It's
first.
Secret of Cinnabar Mansion, right? I want to make sure I have that right.
That is correct. It's a Gen 1 style game that takes place entirely in one big dungeon, which is the Cinnabar Mansion, but I expanded it, so it's a lot bigger.
Yeah, I don't have like any like sort of deeper detailed question because I'm sure it's a long time ago and you don't remember a lot, but I'm just wondering like what was it like working on that game, and what was it kind of like just like participating in like the first jam?
So it was, I'm very, very glad that I did that jam. I mean, I'd been developing Pokemon Uranium for many years at this point, so it's not like I was inexperienced, but I never, like, opened up RPG Maker, started my own project, and then, like, built an entire game by myself from scratch. And I feel like that was such a valuable experience that I was then able to take that knowledge and, like, deeper understanding of how RPG Maker works, or how, like, events are coded, and, like, actually contribute some, like, very rudimentary events, and, like, more than that, just the understanding of like every step of the game process, from like starting the project to building your maps to, you know, importing custom tiles to, you know, beta testing and everything. Like, it was a super duper valuable experience, and I was really pleased with the end product. You know, I intentionally kept the scale modest, which is something really saying something if you know me. Every single project that I touch tends to explode in terms of its scale. I don't know the meaning of moderation, but this project, by virtue of it all taking place in one building and with a very specific like end point, I was able to build it and complete it by the end of the jam. And it wasn't I mean, it was mostly a solo project. I think JV helped a little bit with like mostly advice, but, you know, and some last minute, like, here's how you ship your game properly, you know, that kind of thing. But I mean, it was mostly just a great confidence boost of having built an entirely complete project. And then I think I won an award. I think I won Judge's Choice or something.
Best
Yes,
spotlight.
it was a spotlight from what I remember.
I was very pleased with the result, and yeah, and it's a fun game. I don't know that a single person played it. Maybe a few people played it.
I actually just
Kate
like,
played it on
it,
stream.
like,
Really?
yeah, I played it like a few months ago actually.
For real? What did
Yeah.
you think?
I thought it was really good, especially for like, because the way I view things is that the quality of fan games is just like on an upwards trajectory over time. So
Especially jam games.
yeah, so considering that I got like a very pure like Gen 1 experience with like an actual story, and like that released like 10 years ago.
Oh my god,
is
it was
actually
wasn't it? Because I
crazy.
released it before Pokemon Uranium, so yeah. Yeah, technically I guess it was my first fan game that I ever released.
Oh yeah,
Although
when you beat...
there were betas of Uranium, so I had releases before then, but like it has a special place.
I'm like trying to dig back into my memory because it was a few months ago for me. But I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about it is just like very open, like exploration focused. Like even though you're in one location, like you pretty much have like there's nobody telling you where to go basically, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I intentionally kind of made it. It's not non-linear. I mean, there's definitely like a sequence of events that you need to do in order to complete the story. There are two endings. There's a bad ending and there's a good ending if you get all the journal entries. You know, it was fun. I have this, I don't know if you found the area. I think you have to in order to get the good ending, but like there's a part where you can go out on the balcony, and I deliberately didn't have there be any music on the balcony and just had there be like the sound of waves and like seagulls cawing, and just having that kind of like place where you can take a break from the whole like the exploring the dungeon and just have a moment there. And I put like a backdrop of the ocean.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I got the good ending, so I'm pretty sure I like explored that area, and I honestly I think I probably thought there was like some jump scare about to happen.
I'm not a big fan of horror. That's not true. I've grown to enjoy horror, but I wouldn't put a jump scare in my game.
Oh yeah, no, jump scares are...
That's funny because the other Cinnabar Mansion fan game I know is a jump scare game.
There's another Cinnabar Mansion fan game?
Scotophobia is based on Cinnabar Mansion, right?
Oh yeah,
is that what you're talking about?
Scotophobia.
Yeah.
Huh. I mean, it's a cool area. It was my favorite, like, dungeon area in Pokemon Red and Blue. It's such a cool, like, I mean, I love the idea of, like, a derelict lab, like a burned out building, like the, you know, people's regrets left to fester and become overrun by thieves and wild Pokemon, and, like, underneath a buried secret. And it's sort of a prequel to Pokemon Red and Blue because, like, well, because Mewtwo's there.
Yeah.
That's the big... I mean, like, Cinnabar Mansion is where they made Mewtwo, so it was kind of, like, building off of that. And Mewtwo's just the coolest. I mean, the lore around Mewtwo is fascinating. I just remember, I mean, in the original games, exploring it and collecting, seeing all the journals, and it's like, Mew gave birth. I'm like, what the fuck you mean it gave birth?
Who is Mew?
It's really good though. I mean, the atmosphere was just unmatched, so that's just me copying Game Freak's homework, really.
Well, it's also like Cinnabar Mansion. I feel like being in the first Pokemon game, and it's also like the location out of everywhere in the entire game where I feel like environmental storytelling is like at its peak, which I find environmental storytelling is like a really big thing for me. So it's just so cool to like see that. Other than like the fact where they tell you that Mew's from Guyana or whatever, that might be my favorite line of dialogue in all of Pokemon.
Wait, what? Mew's
from
what?
Mew's from Guyana.
Yeah,
the
from
South American country. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, Lieutenant Surge is the Lightning American. I think Pokemon Red and Blue explicitly take place on Earth in Japan.
Yeah.
That's odd to think about.
You know, there's all the dex entries describing how a Pokemon's like Raichu's lightning can fell an Indian elephant.
Yes.
Like, what's an elephant? What's in India?
But Oripoke, do you think you'd be open to like working on another jam game, or do you think that's kind of past you at this point?
I think probably not. I would work on another game on Poke Engine. But as for like what I could learn and glean from working on a jam game, I think I really got what I needed to out of the first jam game, and I'd rather devote my energies to making Pokemon Flux as good as it can be. You know, it's jams are great for like new devs or like people who are just breaking out into the dev scene to like. I mean, I cannot possibly emphasize enough how great it is to have a completed project under your wing, under your belt, so that you can the confidence boost that it gives you, the skills that you develop by, you know, making a fan game from start to finish, those are huge. That will propel you forward immensely. It did for me. But once you've already done that, I don't want to take the spotlight away from anybody. I mean, really at this point, anything I touch is, you know, gonna make a splash by association, and I want to leave that opportunities for new developers who really, you know, who could seriously benefit from making a smaller scope project like that. I also just want to make more stuff in Poke Engine. I think it's fun.
Plus, I think like there's a big community in like playing through jam games, which definitely help new developers improve. Like I know that definitely helped me in the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's so great that like not only is a jam a great opportunity to like start and build a project, but it's also a great opportunity to find an early audience and, you know, get early feedback on your work. There's something that, you know, is really hard to describe, but the feeling of watching someone else play through your game in like a let's play the first time, it's like crack.
Oh yeah,
inject
like,
it directly
Kane,
into your veins.
Kane, I think, is the first person who played any of my games, and it didn't matter how much he like shinned on it because oh my god, it was a terrible game. It still was just such a euphoric experience of like oh my god, someone is playing it.
Yeah, it does wear off over time, but not really. Every time there's a new Let's Play of Pokemon Flux, I try to at least tune in for a little bit. Some of them I can't get through it, though. Some PokeTubers, just their delivery doesn't do it for me. But there are PokeTubers, conversely, whose work I very much enjoy. Voltsy is one of them. I really like the way that... I like the way he reads dialogue and kind of... He just really appreciates fan games, and I appreciate that. You know, he's not trying to meme on him. He doesn't do a Nuzlocke for every single goddamn game, which drives me insane. Why would you blind Nuzlocke fan game with fake on it. Why would you blind Nuzlocke anything? It's dumb. Just for clicks. You're gonna destroy your first impressions of the game, and it's not like you're gonna play through it again if you lose the Nuzlocke, right? You're screwing yourself over of having an authentic experience the way that the game was designed. But something else I've learned in developing games is that players are going to play your game in the wrongest possible way that you cannot predict. There is no way, as a developer, you could possibly anticipate all the ways in which a player is going to experience your game. And I say experience because a lot of them aren't even going to play it. They're going to watch, if it gets played by a PokeTuber, maybe most of the people who experience your game are going to do it vicariously through watching someone else play it on YouTube or TikTok or whatever. I don't know if there's fan game Let's Plays on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok.
I think there is.
I
or
think
at
there
least fan
are.
game reviews.
Maybe
I'm too old.
highlights.
Yeah,
Like,
you can't really do a
no,
proper
TikToks-
Let's Play.
TikToks can be up to an hour now.
What?
I know
remember-
that, but I'm not like, look, when I go on TikTok, at least, maybe my use of TikTok is different from everybody else's, but when I go on TikTok, I need to turn my brain off for 5 minutes. When I want to go watch somebody play a Pokemon game, at least maybe this is just for me because I'm like a game design nerd, like I would need my brain on. I want to think about like the design choices and like that have happened, and like I really want to experience the game. That's why I don't really watch Let's Plays, because I want to like experience the game for myself. But
Would you watch a Let's
Yeah.
Play of your own game if you made a game? I don't know if do you make games?
I've
Yeah,
made
all
a
three of us
few.
have made. So.
Have you watched a Let's Play of your own game?
Yeah. Watching a Let's Play of my game's different, I feel like.
it's like drugs. It's better than drugs.
Because if I go to play through my game, it's like, oh my god, this is the 10 millionth time I've played through my game. I know exactly what to do. I'm going to play through it the same exact way I always do. It's a lot more interesting to see somebody who knows absolutely nothing about the game and like see them make their own choices and stuff like that.
Oh, definitely. And I don't
It's
know
so
if you
true.
guys have like the same experience, but at least for jams, because I've only made one fan game outside of a jam and like at least have a released version out for it. But like for jams, it's like the last day of playtesting for me. Like once I get to that very end, the game just looks utterly terrible to me.
It's the worst day, in my
You
opinion.
see
like,
all of
I'm
the
just-
flaws, but
Yeah.
players aren't going to necessarily see those flaws. Players are going to experience everything that you've seen a million times with fresh eyes, and
Or
so
even sometimes hallucinate flaws.
yeah, another philosophy that I try to apply to fan games, and this might surprise you, maybe it won't, is that done is better than perfect. You're never gonna make a perfect game. No single game in the universe is perfect, and that includes your fan game. That includes my future fan game. That includes Pokemon Flux episode whatever that has the whole game in it. It's not gonna be perfect. It's just gonna be what it is. And that's fine. I'd rather have a game that's out there that's complete and playable than a game that is never released, but is perfect in theory. Which is actually the fate of a lot of these very hyped up fan games. They just they let perfect be the enemy of good.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know. Also, since you kind of talked about the next chapter, I'm gonna ask you the question probably a lot of people are thinking. I don't know. I don't know our audience that well, but do you have any updates for like the next chapter of Flux? How development's going?
We're working on it. I would say we're maybe a little over halfway. Most of the mons are done, and the areas have been mapped, and we're working on the story events right now, which is the longest and most time-consuming part, at least for me. Well, aside from beta testing, so we are working on it. It is a very big update. It is probably the same size, if not even slightly bigger than episode 1, in terms of number of mons, number of, amount of story, number of areas. There's actually a lot more areas in this one than there are in the first episode. It's huge. It's absolutely massive. I was literally working on it today. It's a slow burn, but we're making constant progress. It's just that there's a lot of progress to be made. Also, because I'm insane, I do want to do want to underscore the fact that I'm insane. We're animating all of the Pokemon front and back sprites, which is something that I've come to really enjoy, actually. I've learned a process from Ant, who you guys might know is the guy who makes the really good animated sprites.
Yep.
He taught me his ways. Yeah, he taught me his ways, and so now I can animate Pokemon sprites in the same way that he does, using the same program. It still takes so much time, but the end result is great. It takes a very long time. If I could delegate that, I would, but no one else really knows how to make Gen 5 style animated sprites to the level that I'm like satisfied with, and is willing to devote their time and energy to somebody else's project, so it's gotta be me. Basically, I do a lot of stuff, right? I make like most of the pixel art, like all the Pokemon sprites, all the back sprites, front sprite, back sprite, icon sprite, overworld sprite, and animation, front and back. I don't do the shinies. Somebody else does the shinies. Thank God. I hate shinies. I also write all of the dialogue. In Pokemon Flux, I don't know if you remember, there are 3 protagonists, which means there are 3 versions of every story event. And sometimes there's branching paths within those, so I have to write, and if you've written out dialogue for your game, I do it kind of like in I'm not touching RPG Maker, like, ever. That's all JV. I write it out in a Google Doc in sort of like a play script form with like stage directions and stuff to describe the events and the settings, and then JV implements it into actual code. And this will drive you all insane. He hard codes every event. None of it is using the script language, like the script interface in RPG Maker. All of it is written in pure RGSS.
So like no events, it's just like the event calls a script.
Yes, every single one.
That
is kind of crazy.
That is kind of crazy. I do agree.
Why
I
does
told
he
you,
do
Jake,
that out of
because he's a
curiosity?
prodigy. That's how his brain works. He's a genius. He
But-
sees the code.
Okay.
That's one of the things, though, I do want to emphasize, Ori, that you said, and like that I think people who have not worked on a fan game before is like, y'all have to understand that this stuff takes so much time. Like, think about,
Yeah.
like, I'm sure you have a better process of doing this, but imagine making animated sprites for Pokemon and how long just a singular sprite would take.
Takes
You have
about,
to
like,
make
an hour-
so many
hour-
frames.
Hour and a half. Well, so actually my new process doesn't involve frame by frame animation. Sometimes I'm still doing frame by frame animation, but now I basically cut the sprite into pieces and use use the software Pixelover, which allows me to apply vectors to each piece. So basically, they all have like parent and child relationships, and so if I rotate one part of the sprite, it'll rotate all the associated ones. And that lets me like easily play with like the timing, and it basically turns the sprite into a puppet, the same way that they did in Pokemon Black and White. So rather than having to meticulously move it pixel by pixel, frame by frame, which is how I did all of the sprites for episode 1, by the way. The ones that Antiant didn't do.
Oh my god.
But now I have this better process that's, I mean, it's the results are a little different, but the process of making it is more fun. It's less like pulling teeth. And I think the results speak for themselves and produces some really nice, smooth, and pleasant looking animations, and the battles feel alive, especially when all of the Pokemon are animating. You really feel like, okay, this is more of the game feel thing that I was talking about earlier, but like when the Pokemon are all animating and moving and blinking and twitching and flapping, and it's like, that's a real creature.
Yeah.
You see a Pokemon sprite and it's like, oh, it's just a sprite, that's in some artwork somebody drew. But you encounter a Pokemon and it's like breathing and it's like moving and it's like fire is burning, and it's like, oh my god, that's a Pokemon, that's my friend, I'm gonna catch it. It's like, it totally shifts the mindset. And when every Pokemon is like this, it's like you are fully immersed in the experience. And I mean, I was just saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, but here I am being like, I need everyone to be immersed. I need people to love all of my Pokemon designs because they're original, right? People are hesitant to adopt Fakemon games because they think that they have a reputation, I guess, of like, I don't know, they're not sold on the authenticity of Fakemon, because they're made by amateurs, right? I want to sell people on my Fakemon. I guess, you know, what are the, when you hear Fakemon fan games, I mean, you're probably thinking like Pokemon Uranium, or you're thinking like Pokemon Quartz, where they look like dog shit. My job is to sell people on like, this is a Pokemon. There's nothing fake about it. I mean, well, every Pokemon is fake, right? But I want people to think of my Fakemon at the same level as canon Pokemon. I want there to be no distinction.
But no, I definitely do appreciate you going in and animating all the sprites, because I remember when I played through Chapter 1, obviously I understood why all of them weren't animated, because oh my god, I can't even imagine. But it definitely, like, the mix, some of them being animated and some of them being static, just felt weird.
Yeah, it stands out. It's like, you know, it's like having a hangnail.
Yeah.
You know, you can ignore it, but it's a little bit irritating just in the back of your mind. It kind of takes you out of the full experience. So, I don't know. I mean, I would rather get episode 2 out and then with like a patch update, add more animated sprites than have that be the holdup. But we want to have as many sprites animated as possible on both sides with the new edition. So that's a big undertaking. On top of everything else. But I will say, you know, now that I have this slightly more optimized process for making animated sprites, I do a lot of different things, right? I write for the game, I make sprites for the game, and I do animations for the game, and I also do a bunch of other miscellaneous tasks and stuff. Fortunately, I've been able to outsource some of the stuff, so like the file management. Okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but the file management process of like sorting and numbering and naming and archiving all of the sprites, the front, back, shiny, making sure they're all the same, like stored in game with a consistent name, that there's like documentation all throughout. That's all handled by the wonderful, illustrious Matt GCN / Future Sushi, who you should definitely have on this podcast in a future episode. He knows everything about fan games and he can talk to you extensively about them to a great degree. But yeah, he is truly the grease that makes the wheels turn. There's no task too menial, and I am so delighted to have him on the team. He also manages the God spreadsheet, the most optimized spreadsheet. Well, I wouldn't say optimized. The most comprehensive spreadsheet that contains literally all of the data in Pokemon Flux. Every single move learned by every single Pokemon, every TM, all of the new moves and abilities that we added, all the item placements, the held items, the drop tables, all of it. The progress in terms of it, resources and assets that we still need to create, all of it is managed on one hyper complicated spreadsheet that Matt is the arbiter of. And it's made our lives so much easier. It like literally outputs to just a single TXT that we can paste into Pokemon.txt, and it's good to go with all of the data. Phenomenal. So having someone that handles that would be a huge lift if I was doing it or if JV was doing it, and having someone who loves doing it really helps. It makes sure that aspect of the game is like covered, because as I found, I was the one for the most part who did all the movesets and like stats in Pokemon Uranium, and you might have noticed this, they're pretty unbalanced because I'm not a competitive battler. I just put some moves and stats that I thought sounded cool, so there's some stuff that's broken as shit, like Nucleon. But you know, now that we have like some more quality control on that, it makes it so that the game itself is more coherent and balanced. And yeah, we're still a small team. Aside from me and JV, who are sort of the core, and Matt, who's the stats master, and he's also part of the core team. There's Jumpluff, who does the original soundtrack. It is amazing and also ridiculously talented. I don't know how JV found him. Y'all should subscribe to him on YouTube. His music compositions are genuinely incredible. And also I can be like, hey, we're making this new area. It's got this, and this vibes, or like there's a character that we're adding and they need a battle theme, and he's like, right, on it. And then like a day later he comes out with like a demo and it already sounds amazing. It's like, this is just a work in progress. dude's insane. So Flux is 100% original OST. Golurk is an incredibly talented artist, like insanely talented. He's the one who did the cover art. If you go on our Twitter, the banner and all the episode release art, he's designed multiple Fakemon in Pokemon Flux, like Carmelary, who's a pretty popular one, or slash hated one because of its new ability that we gave it, called Power Thief, that makes it raise its stats when it lowers its enemy's stats. It's diabolical. It gets moves like Snarl and Electro Web, which in a double battle, if it lowers both opponents' stats, you betcha it's getting a double stat boost. It's insane. And he's designed a couple other. So he's he's primarily though the character designer and artist, and his artwork is just astonishing. I'm not as good at drawing humans or designing human characters. I could do like sketches, but his final rendering is just like pitch perfect, exactly like Pokemon style. Kyle Dove, I've buried the lead here. Kyle Dove has contributed some really amazing pixel art. Egg and Dr. Tapeworm are both amazing Fakemon sprite artists. Tapeworm especially has some really great Pokemon that are in episode 1. Eggs, I think, are waiting to be in episode 2. I need to add some egg Pokemon. But Tapeworm designed Gullet and Garbagle, among some others, but those guys are some of my favorites.
Those two are some of my favorite Pokemon in Flux.
I love them so much. Oh, I just animated Garbagle, actually. Let me show you. I'll paste the animation that I did for Garbagle's Garbagle, the new episode. He's like all goopy. Give me a second here. But yeah, no, I love Tapeworm's designs, and he's got some new ones in the new episode that I think people are also gonna like. Where is it?
But you also have mentioned a couple times like how you write for Pokemon Flux. What is your process with like writing dialogue and making it sound authentic? And
I typically go through several drafts with my dialogue. It doesn't always come together immediately, but painfully. The process is pain. Would that it weren't, but it is. I try to keep it brief. Brevity is not something that comes naturally to me. I've come to realize that players really don't like reading. Players do not read. Players don't read ever, essentially. Some players read, but they are in the minority. Most players are clicking A to get through the dialogue, so I really try to keep my dialogue short and snappy as much as possible, and accentuate it with like things that aren't dialogue. So like characters moving on screen, or Pokemon, or special effects, stuff that like underlines key story moments that go above and beyond the words characters are saying. And I feel like that philosophy helps. However, I still get told my dialogue is too wordy, so I'm really trying to cut back on that. A lot of times I'll write the first version of a scene, and I'll look at it like a day later and be like, this is way too many words to say what I need to say, and then I'll delete half of it. And then it's still too wordy, but at least I'll have made some progress.
It's so difficult, I feel like, to it's so difficult to make a conversation feel natural, but also get the points across in whatever dialogue scene that you need to get across, and keeping it as short as possible. It's such a difficult skill, and
for me,
so
a big problem for a while was all my characters would just sound the same because they were all just written by me. So figuring out how to write with different voices for different characters took me a while to figure out.
Yeah. I mean, I have kind of a leg up because I have an entire second hobby in which I'm a fiction writer. So I write a lot, not just for fan games. And that helps, but not as much as you might think, because writing dialogue in fan games is an entirely separate beast. But I feel like the disciplines are intertwined. I do also struggle with having all the characters sound the same because it's me. So I really try to have some unique and big personalities. Pokemon tends to go big, right? And so I want to have characters that are short, to the point, and loud. are at least memorable, you know? They can be... they don't really need more than one personality trait for a Pokemon game. Although I tend to make them a little more complicated than that. So I wish I had more tips on writing dialogue. Unfortunately, my experience has just been suffering for the most part, and eventually suffer and read back through your writing. Read it out loud to yourself. That tends to, like, that might register some things. Sometimes I'll read it back to myself and imagine Hero Volty is reading it. Weirdly, this helps.
Huh. Interesting.
Because he's got a nice voice, and he always reads all the dialogue. And I don't know. If it's too long, like, I really try to, like, not have compound sentences with commas, you know, have characters just, like, say things very briefly. The window box is not very big. You don't want to have a sentence go on to the second box, you know? So it's very different in a way from if I was writing dialogue for, you know, if I was writing prose. This is more akin to, well, it's writing a script.
I don't know, when you say writing for, like, video games is, like, easily translatable skill set wise to writing other things?
I mean, like, writing is a lifelong pursuit. There's nothing easy about writing. Writing takes can take a lifetime to learn, and maybe 2 lifetimes to learn. So, but sure, yeah. I mean, like anything, the more you do, the easier it gets. But it's still hard. I've done it so much, and it's still very difficult. And I don't foresee it getting easier. In fact, the stakes are pretty high now, so I have to make sure that it's. I have to do an even better job than before, which is challenging. It's always challenging. Writing is my burden, but it's also not the one thing that I can't possibly delegate to anybody else. You understand? It has to be me.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah. And just in general, like, I'm trying to get better with working with groups because for a while I just was like delegating anything off to other people. It just, like, it's out of my control then.
Then you're the ideas guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think working, at least, I don't know. This is how my working in a group has, like, evolved. When I started doing fan games and, like, when I was in, like, high school and college, every single group project just, like, kind of sucked generally because, like, I don't know. You always feel like you're the person who does, like, I'm the person who's doing everything. All my other teammates aren't doing anything, blah, 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 blah. And, like, you know, while that's probably true for some projects, all it takes is, like, 1 or 2 good group experiences to, like, kind of flip a switch where it's like, oh yeah, working on a team is actually really fun. And, like, especially for me, I'm, like, very fortunate. I have, like, a super fun team to work with, like, in my professional career. So,
yeah,
like,
same. I mean,
it's learning how to trust
yeah.
people and having good experiences like that.
I'm frankly blessed by having such a good team, both for my fan game as well as, you know, with my professional career in the same way. You know, having people who are responsive, who understand the scope of their work, who communicate if there's ever a problem or if there's something that they're not going to meet, you know, a certain deadline for, you know, but that's a life skill. That is an adult skill. It's no wonder that high school and college group projects suck ass, is because high schoolers and college students don't know how to communicate. They haven't developed that life experience. Of course they're going to be bad collaborators and they're going to, you know, flake at the last minute. It's fine. I'm just saying. It's something you get with experience. And also, I mean, the fact that everyone working on Pokemon Flux is like a full-ass adult with a full-time job, which means that it's slow, but it also means that they're a joy to work with, and that the game development process itself is play rather than work.
It's
It's something that I do when I don't want to think about work, or to unwind after a long week of work. I work way too much. I work so much. I work full time. 40-hour work week.
It's so funny to like hear you and like hear you bring up like communication, because like so I minored in communication, and like the first good group project experience I had in like was my last semester in college in a communications class that was called small group communication. So it just goes to show how important communication is to working in like a group, and like how difficult it is to like be good at it, I feel like.
Yeah, it's really, sometimes groups, there's drama. There's never been drama, fortunately, within the Flux team, but sometimes groups it doesn't work out, and that can really cause some pretty serious some serious development delays. So you want to make sure that if you're committing to work on a large project with a number of people for the foreseeable future, just like how in the professional space people are the hiring process, the onboarding process is a very elaborate and careful thing that can take way too long for how soon you need the person. I wouldn't say you need to go that long about it, but do think carefully about who you bring onto your project. I feel like pretty much any fan game that's like, anyone can come and collaborate with me. First of all, you're probably not going to get that many collaborators, and secondly, if you're not selective with the kinds of people that you're working with, it's going to come back to bite you. You want to make sure that you've got good chemistry and a good working relationship with everybody, whether it's on like a fan project or professionally. So there's so many things that are actually transferable between working with a team. Doesn't matter if it's on a fan game or what, but in our case it's with the fan game team, and working in the real world. No matter what your career path is, I think that experience doing stuff like this will pay dividends. Maybe not financially, but experientially. It's the kind. No, you will lose money making fan games. It's inevitable.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's money that you spend commissioning stuff that you can't make yourself, or it's money spent hosting web pages, or it's money spent buying new art programs, and only to figure out that you liked your old art program just fine, or it's just time, which is money. Fan games only cost, but it's play. Why would you? You're not doing it for not doing it to make a profit. It exists purely outside and in many ways in opposition to capitalism. So, make fan games as a revolutionary act. Dismantle the machine, etc., etc. No, I'm just kidding. Make your little guys.
What would you say is like one of your favorite fan games outside of obviously the ones you've worked on?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I've talked a lot about Pokemon or Poke Engine, which I think is a very special. I mean, Poke Engine as a whole is hard to call it a fan. I mean, it is a fan game, but it's a little more than a fan game. It's more like an MMORPG.
Like a hub of fan games.
Yeah. Well, okay, this is a deep cut, and nobody's played this fan game, but there's a game called Pokemon Alabaster, which came out ages ago, and I still am the admin for the Discord channel of it. The creator disappeared off the face of the earth. I don't think he ever made anything else, and has not been present online for like 5 years. He dropped one episode, like one update, and then vanished for like 3 or 4 years, and then came back and dropped another episode. So who knows? It's been like 5 years. Maybe he's coming back with episode 3. But that fan game changed what I thought was possible with fan games. Firstly, it was super fun. Secondly, it was really challenging. Thirdly, it was really immersive. I felt like the world was sort of organic and things. It had like a choices matter type gameplay but some of the choices you weren't even aware that you were following. Like, you'd activate a certain side quest and it would put you down this specific path. It seemed very organic, and there were some pretty significant choices you could make later on that would have huge consequences in terms of the story. Like, you could choose to join the evil team, who weren't so evil after all. And that would have completely separate events for if you chose to oppose them. It's not like there's another more finished fan game, I think, that's like this, but I think Pokemon Alabaster, what it made up for, what was I haven't played the other game that I'm thinking of. Unbound? Is it Unbound that I'm thinking of? I haven't played it.
I've heard of Unbound.
Yeah, but anyway, Pokemon Alabaster was really something special, and it was also kind of like limited in terms of what kinds of Pokemon you could choose from at the start. Like you weren't like picking from the traditional 3 starters. The starter options were like Beldum, which sucks, Larvesta, which sucks, and Togepi, which sucks. But all in their own unique and fun ways. And so like team building was an interesting puzzle. And it was just like there was nothing else quite like Alabaster. The feel of it, the world, the story, the way that it unfolded was full of mysteries and intrigue. I was consistently blown away by it. I think if I played it again today, I would like re-experience some of my favorite things that I've ever seen in any fan game. And no other fan game has really come close. That said, I've played some other great fan games, but no other fan game has scratched that same exact itch. And I don't know if there might be a game that's like it out there, but Alabaster is something really special. Also, the writing was very good. I don't know if I said that, but the writing was really good. So that's me fangirling about my obscure fan game that I love that nobody's ever played.
I just opened the Poke community thread, and sure enough, there's a comment from Involuntary Twitch from 2016 talking about how you played the game for an hour and you really like it so far.
Yeah. I still run the Discord server for it. I think at this point, I'm pretty sure the download link from the Poke community thread is gone bust, but you can still download it from the mirror that we set up on the Discord server. I'm committed to not letting this fan game die. I think it's incredible. I think it's a work of art.
Huh. I may have to check it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it holds up. It's like Gen 4, so...
Yeah.
Gen 5? No, it's Gen 5. It's got Gen 5 Pokemon.
Does it have overworld shadows? I think that's the main thing that...
Yes, it does.
Oh god.
It sure does.
Really? Because I'm looking in the screenshots and I don't...
I can see
Oh, no,
them.
I see it. No, I see
It definitely does. Yeah, there's like a attention to detail in this game that is unparalleled.
Oh no, are the shadows asymmetrical? Let me look
Probably.
at this. I need to examine.
Well, it depends. I don't know. It's
Oh,
made by
It
one
could
guy.
depend on the
Yeah.
sprite. It could depend on the sprite.
Yeah.
It's all made by one dude.
Alright, it's asymmetrical. Minus
So?
0.5 points.
Just play the damn game. Don't judge a game by its screenshots and play it already.
I know.
Also, it's got a custom soundtrack. Man, Alabaster rules. They need to finish it. It's never gonna get finished. I'm pretty sure the creator is like, probably has a family with kids or something. It has way better things to do than make Pokemon fan games, but I'm
I
waiting.
don't know if you know, but like Atomic Reactor, dev of Infinity, dev of
Yeah, he just had a son.
Pokemon Obsidian, he had his son, yeah.
Yes,
He's a father now.
I'm so happy for him.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he posted baby pics. We're in a Discord together. He shared some pics of his kid. I'm really happy for him. I don't
Fan
think
game
that
devs
having
becoming dads.
Yeah, I don't know if having kids is incompatible with making fan games, but it would definitely make the time, my already limited time even more limited. So, that's just something to keep in mind. But it would also be pretty delightful to play through a game that I made with the kid someday. The kid that I made.
Yeah, but then imagine they turn
Or a
around and say,
child,
this sucks.
They're entitled to their opinion, and that's fine. I would only be hurt a little bit. I definitely wouldn't be hurt at all.
I don't even like Pokemon. Why are you making me play this?
I wouldn't force my kid to like Pokemon. I think children just sort of naturally like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
Except for some.
Yeah, I guess, maybe my kid would be into something, like, completely incomprehensible to me. Already the children are into things that I can't possibly understand, so,
No, even
Yeah.
I don't understand, and I'm still technically a child, so...
So, yeah, I can't pretend to know, but, well, I hope so. I mean, if they're anything like me.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a parent, you can't really enforce your likes and dislikes onto your kid. I mean, you can to some extent. Like, I definitely think my music taste when I was, like, a young teenager was pretty much just whatever my parents had in our iTunes library, which is pretty good. It's like Talking Heads and Beck. So...
Psycho Killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I feel like that could also like backfire if you like.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like I don't know.
Like, oh, I hate Pokemon. My mom loves it. It's so cringe.
I feel like I don't know. Genetically, the one thing that may have been pushed on me is that I'm a contrarian. So I'm like instantly like if you try to force me into something, I'm just gonna not like it.
Yeah. I'm definitely a little bit of a contrarian.
Well, we can't control. We can't control everything and everybody. We can only accept things as they come. And that's okay.
We've been going for a while. Did we want to do one last question? And then...
I was thinking I have two things related to Flux that we have yet to ask, and that is,
Hit me.
what is your favorite Fakemon in Flux, and what is your favorite character in Flux so far? Those are two.
Oh, I've got an answer for you. Well, I love all the Fakemon. They're all my babies. However, Chiclet and its evolutions were designed by me, for me, specifically. It's a dinosaur, it's a bird, it's a fire type. You know, the final evolution is my favorite dinosaur, Archaeopteryx. So yeah, it's Chiclet. I love all of the Pokemon. There's not a design of the game that I dislike. Obviously, I chose them all. But that one was made specifically for me. So that's my special boy. As for my favorite character, it's Gale. If you remember, he's your jerk-ass rival that you meet in the school town.
Yeah.
He's
like one of the... I remember him, like, very deliberately.
He's so much fun. He's a tsundere.
Yeah.
I love jerk rivals. I love writing his dialogue. Leo is good too, although he doesn't really have a major role in episode 1. He will in episode 2. Hopefully people will like his role that he has in the new episode. But the two of them are kind of a fun duo. But I love Gale. I love characters who are unrepentant assholes, but like in Gale's case he's an asshole with a heart of gold, right? Like he's a good person, but he will bitch and moan about it the whole way. And he's like intentionally standoffish and disrespectful to you, and I think that's fun. You know, modern Pokemon games, everyone kind of is lining up to kiss your ass, and I like having a rival that's just like, no, I hate you. But I have to ask for your help anyway, and this sucks for both of us. But that creates a kind of fun tension that I think makes that whole sequence pretty memorable with exploring with Gale in the woods. And that's why he's my favorite character. I like a lot of the other characters too, but he's got a special place in my heart.
And then my last question is for anyone wanting to get into fan games or has gotten into fan games but like wants to continue, like, do you have any advice for them?
Play Poke Engine. But more seriously, I mean, just do what you're passionate about. Do things that bring you joy. If that's making maps, if that's designing Fakemon, if that's playing other people's games and writing reviews and sharing your thoughts, if that's like making resources or custom asset packs for people. You don't have to design a fan game to be involved in the fan game community. There's so many other ways. And in fact, just playing other people's games and telling them what you think is a great way to get started. You'll get exposed to a bunch of new ideas, and you'll maybe start to accumulate ideas for your own project, or not, or join somebody else's project. The point is that there's many entry points. There's no right or wrong way to make a fan game. The only wrong way is if you're not having fun while you're doing it. So make sure to enjoy yourself. It's all about having fun at the end of the day. That's my advice.
Very well said. Very well said.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say the only way you can go wrong is by not having overworld shadows.
Well, yes, definitely put overworld shadows in your game. There's just a script you can install in RMXP that does it automatically. You don't have to do anything. I don't know how.
I can't believe this. I can't believe
literally-
and you found someone as crazy as him.
I literally joined the team because I was like, this game needs overworld shadows, so I joined the team to help them and just to add overworld shadows to their game.
It improves the game so much. Like it is. You know how I keep talking about game feel? That's game feel right there.
Yes.
Overworld shadows.
I have found my new best friend.
I'm shaking your hand.
This is insane.
Alright, well, I think that's a good place to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much for coming with us, Oripoke.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite episode of the podcast so far.
I
hope
shouldn't play
everyone-
favorites with your children.
I hope everyone who listened enjoyed, and hopefully we can have more guests come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, massive thanks to Oripoke. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Alright, well, we'll see you next
Jeez.
week with whatever we do then. So yeah, see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.